Affordable Care Act will fail. What they're worried about is it's going to succeed. I mean, think about it. If it was as bad as they said it was going to be, then they could just go ahead and let it happen, and then everybody would hate it so much, and then everybody would vote to repeal it, and that would be the end of it. So what is it that they're so scared about?
Welcome back to Wilkow. That was the president from earlier today. He took a premature Obamacare victory lap because just hours later, another delay was announced. You know, it's starting to feel like Groundhog Day around here. I mean, every day I'm telling you about a new problem with the Obamacare law. Online enrollment for the Small Business Shop Exchange is being pushed back a month, but entrepreneurs can still fill out the paper application and send it to Washington via snail mail. And we all know what a well-oiled machine the U.S. Postal Service is, so this should be no doubt in anyone's mind that these applications are going to make it to where they need to be over at Health and Human Services by October 1st. For more on what to expect, let me welcome back to the program Gina Loudon, host of the Dr.Gina Show and Politichicks.tv anchor. You know, I agree with Rand Paul that if the president loves it so much, he should be on it. I mean, I would like to see someone name Obama on Obamacare.
That's exactly right. Or if they were going to name it a little more honestly, they could just be forthright and say it's really Obama doesn't care at all. And I think that's really what this comes down to. You know, they are, his statement where he said that, you know, the Republicans can just let it happen and then repeal it. Never mind the trillions. You
mean like Social Security or Medicaid or the food stamp program?
Like, yeah. Happens. But secondly, the trillions of dollars it'll cost in the meantime for America to realize that they've made a mistake. I have no doubt that'll happen, but it will be after a great cost to our children, if you want to know.
And no program is a death knell on day one. I mean, the market distortions, it's like a boom and bust. Yeah, a housing policy doesn't collapse the housing market today. It's like a decade later. So if you look at the negative consequences from Social Security, in 1935, 36, 37, it probably looked great. It wasn't until Johnson moved it into the general fund or Medicaid, 1964, I'm sure it was fine. In 65, 66, it wasn't until more recently we started to say, hey, this is not working. So Obama will be long gone when the rest of us start to hurt from this.
Yeah, he'll be out on the golf course with somebody carrying his caddy around, somebody being his caddy, and we'll be the ones, we women, the real war on women will have manifested itself, and we'll be the ones who are getting our breast exams at the TSA. I mean, this is something that has gone so far, it's taken over so much of our economy, 20% of our economy. I mean, we can't forget that for a second. There's never been a federal program that did something like this. This is a nightmare, and we're going to pay dearly. And the worst part is, for young people, their costs are tripling. And this is the other thing. Andrew, if this program is so brilliant and so good, why are the people that wrote the bill, the bureaucrats, the federal bureaucrats, why are only 2.9% of them wanting to opt in? You really have to ask that question.
That's what I like to ask conservative callers to my radio show. And if we have a limited amount of progressive guests, progressive callers to the radio show, why is that such a weird... Why is that so, out of bounds to ask if this is such a great program? Why would you want anything else? I mean, if the most brilliant minds inside Washington literally created healthcare nirvana, why are they all running away from it? Why is that so crazy?
But, there's a beautiful moment in this, and I think we as conservatives have to really capture this. And I wrote about it at WND, and I said, this is where the American people, I think, for the first time, have, even prior to Ted Cruz's amazingness, the American people caught on to the narrative of
but too late.
This might not be good for us. But they did catch on, and I really think it's the first time in a long time that conservatives have synced a message of free enterprise and smaller government, and I think that that is what we take to the bank from this. Yes, we're going to have this disaster. Yes, it's going to be expensive, but we have new heroes, and we have leaders to believe in again, and I think there's just a lot of reasons for hope. How nice is it to hear someone talk on principle for no ulterior motive at all, as Ted Cruz did the other night?
A point I made in the monologue, and I think Democrats should really start to wrap themselves around this too. This group of people in Washington that we call the establishment, these permanent fixture types, none of them are ever personally affected by the things that go on in Washington.
No.
Boom and bust doesn't affect them. Housing markets don't affect them. Health care doesn't affect them. If we really demanded that our leaders live as we do, they would have all been on that Senate floor the other night with Ted Cruz.
That's exactly right. And I think you have some Republican guilt on this side as well. I think we have
Absolutely.
To I really think it's come down Boehner, I really think it's come down to we the people versus they the elite. I think that they have done a marvelous job, the elite in Washington, D.C., the inside the Beltway types, RNC, DNC types, of spelling out for us who they are, who they think they are, and who we are in their mind. And I think we, as we the people, I mean, you have such bizarre alliances on this now. You have all sorts of, Hollywood elite coming out and saying, oh, wait a minute, we don't really think we like this. We don't really think we like this.
But they're not going to, again, that's part of being in the elite is you get to make a mess of somebody else's life.
Right.
And look at this. The IRS can't account for $67 million spent on a slush fund established for Obamacare implementation. So the money they budgeted to actually make this thing move forward, they lost $67 million of it.
And do you know that part of that money was going to the Los Angeles Unified School District and probably others across the country to have the grade school children
go home and talk to their parents about it?
Yes. I mean, what? To me, that defines just complete lunacy. Complete lunacy. Had the government, if you didn't think it was run amok before, you have to know it's run amok now.
Why not? This is the thing. Baucus called it a train wreck. Joe Manchin, the Democrat senator from West Virginia, is on board with a delay. Would it really kill them to give us one more year? Or, as the president keeps saying, it's going to be so wonderful, is he afraid that if we get one more year to look at it, it's done?
Yeah, we might figure out that the
imminence... Because people will vote on it in 2014.
Right, exactly. Well, and that's the whole question you can ask, Mr. President, if it's such a great thing, why don't you give yourself time to actually implement these 2,000 pages that no one ever read until after it passed, and these 20,000 new categories of classifications of, if you get bit by a duck, you're X1030YE, whatever. How about you give it time so that you actually have a strategy for implementation, because it's become so obvious. There was no strategy at all, Andrew, and we can all see that now, and they're just continuing to deny it.
I know this is not going to happen, but I would love a reporter to bring a Bible to a White House press briefing and say, Mr. President, put your hand on this and say that you read it. Put your hand on this Bible and look into this camera and say, you read every page of Obamacare. Tell me you read it. He's never read it. He's never read a piece of legislation with his own name on it, but keeps telling us how wonderful it's going to be if we'll all just shut up and go along.
Yeah, maybe they should bring a Quran. Did I say that? Yeah.
You can say that. On this network, you can say it.
But he's obviously willing to be dishonest with the American people. We've seen this again and again, from the sequestrations to where do you start, Benghazi? I mean, on and on and on. So this is just one more manifestation of that. But the really cool part, again, the takeaway on this is that people, the American public, not just conservatives, the American public is actually onto him. 54%, I think it is, maybe even 56%, don't want anything to do with this. Almost 50% of it. Percent of people want to opt out. They understand that costs for young people are going to triple under this. Costs for old people are going to double. If you're in California or the Carolinas, you're sunk. It's going to be awful.
You know what the funny thing is? He keeps saying that Republicans predicted Armageddon that hasn't been fully implemented yet. But he keeps saying, well, the shutdown. Well, the shutdown is the sequester cuts. There was this big warning, like the Y2, the Y2K thing, and then we all woke up the next day and the world was still here.
Yes.
If he's banking this on shutting down the government, I think the Republicans should shut down the government, and you'll find that nothing really happens when you shut down the government.
Yeah, Chicken Little will still be running around saying the sky is falling, but nothing will be actually happening. Exactly. And you know what? Is it the worst thing in the world if they don't pass any more 2,000-page bills that no one's actually read? To me, that doesn't sound so bad.
All right, Gina, thank you so much for stopping by. Always good to see you.
You too.
Now, coming up, China is playing nice while we're making enemies all over the world. All the details on China's latest energy grab next.